Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Christopher Aaron. It is October 30th, 2019. There was a Federal Reserve meeting today. I want to talk about what has happened with the Fed, with cutting interest rates, and I want to update the silver market. The price action that we saw in both gold and silver was very interesting today. So let's look at how the silver pattern is coming along and what we should expect over the intermediate term future. Really quickly, I want to say thank you for all those who came out to the Silver and Gold Summit in San Francisco this last weekend. I met a bunch of people. It was really nice to meet you. You know who you are. And please be in touch when it is appropriate for us to work together. I look forward to that. So here is Jerome Powell, Fed chairman. The meeting today was at 2 o'clock. The big thing is that, yes, the Fed did cut interest rates again. They cut by 0.25%. That was the third cut in a row of the present cycle. So the target range for the federal funds rate is now a range of 1.5 to 1.75%. The more significant happening, though, was actually that the Fed changed their language, which strongly indicates that this will be the last cut of the present cycle. And the Fed is still referring to this as a mid-cycle adjustment. So this could be a sort of counter-trend cutting cycle within a larger term rate hiking cycle is still what the Fed is setting this up to be. We will see whether or not they can actually carry that out, or does the market begin to tank again after they try to raise interest rates, perhaps at the December meeting or perhaps as early as March of next year. So we will be paying attention to that, but the indication of a change from Jerome Powell, at least on the surface today. And let's look at how the precious metals responded. Here's gold over the last 3 days. Very interesting sell-off here. We will look at the intra-market comparison, intraday, but here gold selling off immediately following the chairman's words. This is almost a $20 decline right on the speaking of Jerome Powell. And then what? Buyers stepping right back in. So this is almost, this looked a whole lot like a capitulation type of selling move here, especially in that recent range that we've been in for gold. We've been in this range of like 1480 to the low 1500s for over a month now. And so this is quite positive price actions to see the capitulation type move and then new buyers stepping in. Let's watch and see if this market can begin to claw its way back up. 1510 is the critical level that I'm looking at to show me a more significant advance is underway. Switching over to look at silver, really mirroring gold today, very similar price action, of course, more volatile than gold, almost a 30-cent drop and then recovery. Very nice to see that recovery here. Silver has a lot of strong support now in the mid to low 17s. So we're seeing that emerge here on the short term. And switching over to the cross-market comparison here, here was the Fed meeting at 2 p.m. today, Eastern Time. Very interesting, this volatility that we saw. But I think the most important thing to look at here is that U.S. bonds actually outperformed when we look at these 7 major world asset classes here. U.S. long-term bonds outperformed. So if you ask me, and then after that we see senior gold miners almost doing just as well. Gold and silver really kind of leading the pack as far as the major safety trades here. So if you look at all the top 4 here, these are all safety trades. And it really appears to me as though the market is calling a bluff on the Federal Reserve. Because the Fed is saying that they are not going to lower interest rates anytime in the foreseeable future, yet the market is buying bonds. And of course, we know that the Fed has to buy bonds in order to lower interest rates. So it appears that the market is not believing the Fed and is front-running the Fed's eventual reverse course on this policy. So you have speculators stepping in here and buying bonds ahead of a reversal by the Fed, which is very interesting. And so other inflation-sensitive assets picking up well here. Gold miners, very nice to see that recovery. If you look, down negative 1.2% to up 1.5%. Almost a 3% intraday swing. Very nice to see there. The dollar coming under some pressure. Commodities just selling across, the commodity spectrum here. Although I will tell you, I do believe commodities are approaching a significant long-term bottom. So again, it looks like the Fed is being called out by the market right now, and we'll see. We'll see at the December meeting. Does the Fed hold to its word, or do they in fact cut rates again? And especially, I think it'll be more important to look forward into the first quarter of next year. So that fundamental backdrop, let us update the silver market. Silver still looks very good to me here, especially over the intermediate term. We were talking about this a few weeks ago, guys. Go back to the video that was recorded just about 3 weeks ago, and we were talking about this pattern here, right? And we were talking about the expectations for this pattern. Things can be known about the future from studying the past. We outright reject the idea that you cannot know about the future from studying the past here on this channel anyway. That is a rejection of that thesis. Why? Because we had, as an example, this pattern setting up right here in silver, which I was talking about, this pattern being called a wedge decline. This was meeting with a primary rising support trend. One of these two had to give way, and we were talking about the wedge being a bullish biased pattern, even though it's a decline, and that this was meeting with a stronger rising primary support level. And so, what did we see a little less than 2 weeks ago? Right there, the breakout from the wedge. Very nice to see. Right up here, you can see this peak here just below 1830, making a new higher peak than some of the early October peaks. So we've broken the series of lower and lower peaks, and it looks like we have the beginning of a new attempt at a rising trend, which is nice to see that we did not even come all the way back down to touch this blue expanding support level here. Now, the market still could do that. Perhaps we come back here over the next 1 or 2 weeks, something shakes up the markets. Still, though, my bias at this point is to say we've broken this wedge. We are in the beginning of what should be a next advance, which will come in waves, and we'll see the former support peaks here that we can see, resistance, acting as resistance once again, and then the market will break a resistance level. It will then back off again, and it will gear up again to try to break subsequent resistance levels. This is what I see for a silver. There are defined levels that I am watching that will tell me that I am wrong. I do not stay married to a thesis here, come hell or high water. It is good that we adjust ourselves when the market shows us something new. But right now, I see nothing that is changing the operating thesis for higher silver prices over the next 1 to 2 quarters especially. And we will evaluate as we go along. I would say to get positioned right now, this looks like a very good setup. If you would like to speak one-on-one, there is nothing too big or too small. I have clients across the precious metals spectrum. I mean really across the spectrum. So if you are new to this, or you've got several $1 million that you're looking to diversify across this sector, know that I am here to help you from an independent standpoint, someone who does not take any fees from any of the funds or ETFs or equities that we talk about, or any of the storage platforms. No. I work with you simply to help you. You can reach me on the Consultations tab on the website. There is a premium research service which contains videos like this. The one that just went out 2 days ago is over an hour in length, much more in-depth than what you were seeing right here. We cover gold, silver, the US dollar, the US stock market, the GDX and the GDXJ mining sector, the silver mining sector, as well as the exact miners that we are investing in here. And I've got some new candidates for private placement deals that should be shaping up over the next 6 months or so. Some companies that are very sound fundamentally, but you know the sentiment in this sector, and they're strapped for cash right now, and we can get very good deals on investing in some of these companies. All of that goes to premium subscribers each and every week. I hope you will check it out. If you are content to follow the free YouTube videos only make sure you hit the subscribe button so you know when new videos come out. And if you would like to give a little tip or say thanks, I am very happy to receive that on Patreon. It means a whole lot to me, those who have indicated they wanted to do this, sort of a personal thank you, and I very much appreciate it. So here we are. The silver setup looks good. The Fed is talking about pausing on their rate cut cycle. Will they or will they not? The market, which is much more important than anything that is actually said, but the sum of the market appears to be calling the Fed on a bluff right now. We've talked about this. There have been 2 other central banks in the history of the United States that have failed. Will this be the third one? Are we seeing the very initial warning signs of a market that no longer trusts what the Fed says? This is interesting stuff, guys.